stuff. If Edgar wanted Chanel No. 5 on his cereal instead of milk, she would have found the request difficult to deny. More than anything, she wanted the boy to be happy, the way her son had not been happy. Well, yes, he'd been a cheerful child, a clever boy with a great capacity for wonder, not unlike Edgar. It was the end, and the road approaching it that had been so disastrous, a shadowy chaos that, still, she could not penetrate. When she awakened this morning, Frank was clearly in the house, some part of him pulsing in the darkness. "Happy birthday," she'd said. One had to mark such occasions, even if the words felt like nothing more than a stone dropped into a bottomless well. She wondered if Lucy would even remember. The girl was getting more and more forgetful, it seemed, where Frank was concerned. "Do you want more milk on that?" The flakes in Edgar's bowl were looking a little dry. The boy shook his head, a pale replica of his father. "Have more," the old woman said, pouring the milk. "You'll choke on it if you don't have enough liquid." That Edgar looked so much like the young Frank was a complicated blessing. It felt like a second chance, but it felt dangerous as well, like a time bomb. The last few months of Frank's life, his face had become unrecognizable, warped, the old woman supposed, from the weight of the terrible invisibles that had pursued him. But what were they, these thoughts that had made her son's hands tremble? Even his eyes had trembled, like compass needles turning in dread toward some dark and unimpeachable north. After the fact, people had always put it too simply. Frank Fini had gone crazy. Florence resented it when it was summed up in this way. Too tidy. As if you could put your son's death in a filing cabinet and be done with it. Even her ancient cousin, Sabina, Frank's godmother, and a woman stitched from kindness itself, had succumbed to the cruel conveniences of such language. Pazzo, 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 almost as if she were spitting into the boy's grave. It was a ridiculous word. Who wasn't a little crazy? No one, that's who. The old woman had her eyes open. She saw the housewives talking to themselves in grocery stores, the businessmen gesturing and shouting as they walked alone down the street. "They're on the phone," Edgar would tell her, but she could never see a phone. "It's in their ear," Edgar would say. The boy had a vivid imagination. She looked at him now, across the table, eating his cereal in such a deliberate and careful way. If she could have a tall glass of this child every morning, she would live forever. Sometimes she worried that her love for Edgar was too strong, a covetous, earthly love, a love against God, a love to reclaim lost things. But what love wasn't that? What love wasn't a reward to counter an old wrong? Anyway, it wasn't something she could control. How she felt about the boy was how she felt. Love was love, and it was always a monster. She thought of the others, her dear sisters, all gone. Edna in the car crash with Jimmy, Gussie peacefully in her bed just 2 years ago, Cynthia horribly with that cancer in her womanhood, her childhood friends, Grace, Pauline, Nellie. Sweet Nellie. The old woman hadn't thought of her in years. The dead girl's face fluttered across Edgar's and then vanished. Oh, and Pio, of course, her husband. She tended to forget about him, God rest his soul. It was a devil of a thing to admit, but Pio was not the great love of her life. The boy was. This boy, here at the table. Pio was stormy, quick-tempered, with a foul mouth. Frank had been the same. That this quiet child had come from wolves was something the old woman marveled over. He was like one of those tiny figurines in the gift shops, a boy in a straw hat sitting on the edge of a wishing well, a fragile and lovely apparition made of